photos, 18 natty, we saw those 24 natty after test E. So we saw the 24 natty, which was him at his peak of trying to peak out his physique naturally. As we see, this guy's not the most genetically blessed individual. Very f***ing average. What's up guys, Derek, moreplate28.com. Today we're going to be talking about realistic trend results for guys with average genetics. This is a thread that was posted on the moreplate28 subreddit. Worst trend cycle being too cautious is the title. Figured I would share my worst cycle story and hopefully it might help some people out. I was always an active but skinny kid, but only started lifting weights at 15. And by the way, this is like, there is before and after pictures. We will get to those at the end of the video. Or part way through. I don't know what part it's going to come up. And only started lifting weights at 15 when I was in high school. I was a cross-country runner and was basically skin and bone. I don't remember my exact weight, but I was the typical scrawny teen with no muscle and skinny guy abs. So I wanted to get some muscle. Obviously, my training and diet took a few years to get on track, but I trained 3 to 6 days per week and went hard. By 18, I had my diet and training down and worked out every day. I was still a cardio freak and ran multiple marathons that year. I was insanely small, weighing about 150 at 6'1" and at 10 to 12% body fat, but was a calisthenics monster. At my peak, I ran a marathon in 3:10 and could crank sets of muscle ups with a 45-pound plate chained to my waist, do kick-ups and true one-handed pull-ups. I even suffered a pretty severe injury to my leg that even 8 years later still bothers me. So with running out of the question and a growing fascination with bodybuilding, I decided to bulk up. I cut cardio and spent the next 6 years training with weights at minimum 5 days a week and eating big to get big. Of course, this resulted in getting a lot fatter, but also a lot stronger. At 24, I decided to cut back down, and I've never been so disappointed. After 9 years of training from 15 to 24, I felt I had barely put on any muscle. I cut down to 175 at around 15% body fat. I'll attach a picture to the post. All right, let's see what it is. This is him natural at 18. All right, so here we are at Saturn 1995, looking pretty fucking average, bro. So now getting into 24 natty. All right, so yeah, this is him at the current state that he just mentioned. So he said he barely gained any muscle. He was around 15% body fat. My 9 year before and after looked less impressive than many people's 4 month transformation. And I looked like a gym newbie who had been working out for a few months. I decided that I needed to take gear if I was going to see any results. That's where issues started. My first cycle, I just took Test E at 400 milligrams per week and I handled it well. I took HCG and Nova as my PCT and everything went pretty smoothly. Again, is this an ideal, like how many weeks did you take off between the Test E and the PCT? You're taking a lighting cell LH mimic, essentially, that is also providing negative feedback concurrently with your selective estrogen receptor modulator. Is the timing of everything good to actually do a proper PCT? I don't know, I didn't give enough context, but you know, in general, something most people overlook is how long it actually takes for these hormones to clear out of your system to no longer be HPTA suppressive. And most people are starting their PCT 2 weeks after their long ester administration, which is stupid. But I didn't feel like I'd gained much size. I also chose to bulk while on gear, so I had gotten soft and puffy, and I clearly had no abs at all. And when I say it's stupid, I don't mean the people are stupid necessarily. I mean, it's just something that's been passed down the grapevine that, you know, we haven't really been like educated out of yet. And a lot of people still think that's the way they need to do it. But anyways, he was young, he recovered easily, all good. I took 6 months and cut back down to a point where I didn't feel embarrassed to take my shirt off. But again, I felt the need to go harder, and that's when I decided I needed to take Tren. I was so paranoid about steroids. I had developed some very mild gyno as a teen and was so scared of making it worse. I bought a bottle of Letrozole, a few packs of Nova, and a Arimidex on hand just in case. I plan to run test prop at 150 milligrams per week and Tren acetate at 200 milligrams per week for 6 weeks, and then up the test to 200 test prop, 250 Tren Ace, and 300 injectable Winstrol. Wow, that's interesting. Like for your fucking like second cycle deciding to put an injectable Winstrol, like it's kind of a fucking weird choice. I also plan to take, hopefully it doesn't get an infection, fuck. I also plan to take Nova throughout the cycle to keep my estrogen low. Doesn't actually keep your estrogen low, it keeps estrogen receptor activation low. Estrogen levels on paper will be higher, actually. On test, I had gotten stupidly horny and I didn't want to waste time chasing girls, so I picked up a chubby girl at my gym who wanted to be my friends with benefits so that I could just focus on lifting. With everything set, I started my cycle and it went pretty well for about 2 weeks. I felt good, I was gaining strength, my cuts were showing a little cleaner. clearer, but my aggressive anti-estrogen protocol was tanking my estrogen. I was retaining water and was super puffy. I felt tired all day, was extremely moody, and started getting paranoid. I, of course, attributed this to high estrogen and doubled down on a more aggressive anti-estrogen routine. Yeah, again, and even if he got blood work, if he was on Novadex and no AI, your blood work would show your estrogen is like high. And then maybe you'd think, oh, like I gotta take more. And it's like, no, bro, it doesn't fucking lower your E2. Taking a Arimidex or, an Astrazole or, Aromacin, Exemestane, or Letrozole, those will tank your estrogen through inhibiting aromatase. But taking a SERM doesn't do anything to your actual serum level. In fact, you are basically leaving more to be circulating in your system because there is none to bind to estrogen receptors. They're being occupied by the selective estrogen receptor modulators. So this is where people get in hot water and can start fucking themselves up. And again, most people aren't even using blood work. So this guy's just going off the fact that he feels shitty. He's like, oh, it must be high E2. Classic. And then you end up tanking the fuck out of yourself. Attributed this to high estrogen, especially when you have Winstrol in the equation too. Like, man, like this is not like a very estrogenic cycle necessarily. Anyways, I attribute this to high estrogen, doubled down on more aggressive anti-E routine. Taking my estrogen even lower, of course, made all the symptoms worse. I started suffering from ED. I also started sleeping with a few more girls, which made ED big problem. Convinced that high estrogen was my problem and confused as to why Nova wasn't doing anything, I ended up popping Letrozole. This obviously had the opposite of the desired effect, and the bikini girl I'd been sleeping with dropped me because I couldn't keep it up. Brutal. I would still sleep with the chubby girl when the others were busy, but I was dude, I can recall so vividly going to this one chick's house with a Letrozole dick and having it just not function for fucking shit. There's no comparing to low E dick function. It's like literally the only existing purpose of the fucking appendage is to urinate. It doesn't do fucking anything, dude. You can't get blood in there for shit. You can't get a hard on. You can't do anything. And frankly, your sex drive's fucking shit too when your estrogen is tanked. Like you pretty much go like borderline asexual. But I was mainly sleeping with a bikini girl and a runway model. Oh, good for you, bro. Eventually my shit attitude and limp dick made both of them drop me, and I went back to the chubby girl. I was never an aggressive guy, but I ended up leaving my job after reaming out a coworker and a client, and having to find a new gym after getting into a fight with another gym goer because I had somehow convinced myself that he was sleeping with my ex, Tren. To clarify, this was based on how he looked like her type and nothing else. I doubt he had ever spoken to her. This is also attributing to low E, like the obviously neuroprotection in general, but like your state of emotional well-being, ability to tolerate stress. Estrogen plays a huge fucking role. It's not just, the trend fucking things up. When people are haphazardly using aromatase inhibitors, SERMs, etc., like this can fuck with you too. It's kind of funny to look back on, but messing with Tren really had me throwing hands at the gym because a guy looked like my ex's type. Again, I told myself this crazy mood swing must be from high estrogen. I needed to take more Letrozole to fix myself. Beyond this, I became insanely self-conscious. I have extremely few pictures of me actually on Tren because I was so paranoid and self-conscious that I never wanted to be in pictures. This is in spite of the fact that I definitely looked the best I ever had, but I was always convinced that my gyno was noticeable, and if I didn't have a pump that I was small, or if I drank or ate anything, I would be bloated and look fat. This continued for a while, where every week I would get increasingly bad symptoms of low estrogen, and I would attribute it to high estrogen and take increasingly intense measure to continue pounding my estrogen into the dirt. At around week 9, the mental side effects and physical stress became too much and I stopped taking everything. After 3 weeks, I took my PCT of yet more Novadex and HCG. It took almost a year for my hormones to get back to the level where I felt functional. Again, it takes a while for this shit to come back, oftentimes. And more, most people think, just like with a short ester, it's in and out of my system in like a day. And I start my PCT 4 weeks later, I'm fucking fine. Not the case, bro, especially when it comes to 19 Nors. It took almost a year for my hormones to get back to a level where I felt functional. Even then, I struggled with ED and depression, and my hormone panel was still messed up, but within normal range. After 14 months, I took another PCT, and that seems to have helped. Since my second PCT, my test went back up from 290 to 430 nanograms per deciliter, which is a significant improvement, even if it's not ideal for a 26-year-old. I haven't noticed too much permanent damage, which is a relief, and I count myself lucky. That said, my cholesterol is still pretty messed up, and I do worry about neurological effects that maybe just haven't presented themselves yet. My story isn't as crazy or entertaining as most, but I wanted to share it because what I frequently see are horror stories about people messing up by letting their estrogen get too high. This is what scared me into tanking mine, and I want people to be cautious about tanking their estrogen because they're afraid of letting it get too high. Get blood work, it will save your ass. No, this actually wouldn't have saved your ass because it still would have shown you had, a high estrogen potentially. You were on a super physiological dose of test. You were on Tren concurrently, which through Roche ECLIA methodology might have cross-reacted and artificially inflated your estrogen even more. And with a SERM in the equation too, you're not gonna have any decrease in your serum E2. So no, if you are on this shit and you think you need to get your estrogen lowered and you get a blood test and it shows your estrogen's high, if you're on a SERM, it doesn't mean take more fucking SERM or AI because you're already occupying estrogen receptors. You have to go by symptom relief at that point, or just pulling back on whatever the fuck you're using and choosing something smarter. If this guy got his blood work done while he was on all the tamoxifen, it would have shown the same shit. Like it would have shown his estrogen being like high. It would not have showed decreased estrogen whatsoever because he's using a selective estrogen receptor modulator that has absolutely nothing to do with the fucking estrogen production itself. So that is of note because I don't even think he realized that when he says get blood work, it will save your ass. It's just a proxy for shit going on at the end of the day. Like if you're on tamoxifen, your E2 could be fucking 100, but you're occupying estrogen receptors, and it doesn't mean that like you could literally have like fucking ocular issues even with a normal estradiol level, like from low E, just because you actually aren't getting estrogen receptor signaling going. So be aware of that shit, because that's like him saying get blood work, it will save your ass. Like if somebody was in a similar situation and got blood work on tamoxifen, they might have then still added the fucking AI because their estrogen would have been high. So anyways, photos, 18 natty, we saw those 24 natty after test E. So we saw the 24 natty, which was him at his peak of trying to peak out his physique naturally. As we see, this guy's not the most genetically blessed individual. Very fucking average, extremely average. I don't know if people would say below average. I think, this is pretty representative of, when you hear guys like, Greg, myself, we say things like most guys that are on gear, you don't even know are on gear. There's people at your gym that have tried gear, you have no idea. Like this is the kind of shit we're talking about. Like most people, then they try shit, they end up looking something like, here we go, after test D, something like this rather than what you probably assume to be a juice head. So here we go. Like, does this look like a sauce fiend to you? No, it looks like a regular guy who like works out a bit. So, like if you wanted to get like a reality check of like a lot of guys who are natural have no idea what to wrap their heads around when it comes to gear, because we always look at like the most extreme outlier examples. We look at the fitness influencers, what they're taking. We talk about their speculated use, or when they come out and talk about their shit, we discuss it. But there are very few individuals like very fucking average genetics showing what their before and afters are like. Here's him on Tren now. So we saw him as a natural, peak natural. This is him on test. And now this is him on a second cycle on test, Tren, and injectable Winstrol. Boom. So again, most people are gonna be like, what the fuck? You took Tren, you looked like that? This guy's genetics, like first of all, I don't know if his diet and training is actually dialed in like he claims, but some individuals are not going to respond well. Look at graded dose response studies for testosterone. There's individuals who hyper respond, genetic phenoms. There's, a shit ton of people in the middle, and there's people who barely fucking respond. Like, is this individual a guy who responds well? Like, clearly not. Is he below average? I don't know, but you'd be shocked how many people don't really look like they're like on gear that are on fucking gear, Like did the people who did like Tour de France look like they were on fucking gear, even though they're like genetic goddamn specimens and elite goddamn physical representations of peak human performance? Now again, obviously their training is not conducive to muscle growth, so maybe that's not a good example, but I'm just trying to elucidate the fact that most guys who take gear, you wouldn't even know they're on fucking gear, dude. This is a good example, in my opinion, of again, people need to see the average people like yourself who don't make great gains on gear. All they see is people on Instagram. This kind of response to AAS is not the average, to be fair. Yeah, like I guess it's probably below average, I would guess, but I would also be skeptical of his diet, to be honest. Like he says it's on point, but who the fuck knows? It's not like he's actually posted it for us to tell. Yeah, I guess like in general, this is, maybe I'm being a bit too generous to be like your average. Like maybe this is, subpar, but like, again, you would be surprised how many people look like they're on gear who just frankly are not. Even the guys who are average, you'd be like, like this guy, you might suspect something, but it's like, it's not even fucking obvious, like 90% of the time, because most people, again, don't really look like they did. And most people haven't dialed in their diet or their training, their sleep hygiene before they take the shit. And that's sometimes the result too. Individuals who might otherwise have average response, who you just don't see it represented in their physique progression because everything else is fucking shit. Let's see. He either has dirt poor genetics for building muscle or has no idea about training. I was bigger in my first year of natty lifting than his 9 years plus testy and Tren, and my genetics are average as fuck. Now again, aesthetic twitch, like you're saying you're average as fuck genetics, like we don't know that. We haven't seen you. Maybe you're not, you know? I was bigger in my first year of natty lifting than his 9 years of testy and Tren. Yeah, I guess, you know, I could see why you know, some people will definitely be able to get that for sure. So I don't know. It's hard to say though. Like we're just speculating. This is all kind of just subjective at the end of the day. Who fucking really cares if he's below average or not at the end of the day? This is a representative of individuals who are not cream of the crop, which is all we really talk about most often is, you know, crazy scenarios with individuals who, you know, are big influencers in the space or whatever. And like we do the Tren horror stories where there will be people putting their before and afters, and oftentimes these are pretty average individuals too. But these are like few and far between. Like only recently have people become more like outspoken about, you know, weird fucking situations in their before and afters. Like before my subreddit, I didn't really see a whole lot of like big deep dives into like, you know, Tren before and afters and stuff like that. Like I get, yeah, there was shit on forums, but it wasn't like so concentrated in this one area for me to fucking, you know, consolidate and, you know, represent the information to you guys. So anyways, him on Tren, it is, you know, relatively unimpressive, which I think you might speculate he might have, oh, here's a front shot. I didn't even know he had a front shot here. So this is compared to him as a natty, him after 2 cycles. You know, obviously improvements, but nothing, you know, that looks genetically gifted by any means. Well, I'm glad we have the internet in places like this to ask questions because they can see where your head was in the situation thinking it was estrogen causing these symptoms. Again, I made a video called high estrogen symptoms versus low estrogen symptoms. I'll put up a card in the corner, high estrogen. It's like how I felt with high estrogen versus low or something like that. Hopefully my editor can find it. That video, I kind of broke down how to sort of differentiate between the two and what you sort of feel like. And again, you have to be very cognizant of this shit because it's very easy to crash your estrogen and then assume that something is still wrong and you are high because your dick's not working, shit's just not functioning properly. And some of these side effects do overlap, you know? Like you could have, you know, total ED and think it's, you know, one or the other and be like totally, you know, discombobulated trying to figure out like what it is. But again, that's, you know, blood work would be useful in that scenario, pending you weren't already using something like a SERM, like this guy in this case. So that's where context specific information comes into play, where if you're using drugs that are occupying estrogen receptors, your blood work is a bit less indicative of what the fuck is going on. So like you have to be aware of the pharmacology too, which this guy obviously didn't really understand it fully before he started using this shit, which is another red flag, which obviously would sort of play into why he would not get results. Now again, how much does that play into it when you have fucking idiots take whatever they want and still blow up and become like top bodybuilders if they have the genetics for it? Probably, you know, probably not a lot at the end of the day. But as far as his health goes, he should have definitely learned more. But as far as his gains goes, I don't think it really made that much of a difference, to be honest, unfortunately for him. So you got fucked because he had 0 estrogen for 9 weeks. Yeah, he would have made better progress if he wasn't inhibiting estrogen. Would he have looked like, you know, a trend out, you know, sauce fiend like we're used to seeing? No, he wouldn't have, but it definitely would have been a bit better of a, you know, growth period if he did not inhibit estrogen like he did. So anyways, this is the final outcome. And again, this is a very potentially below average / at best bottom average response to shit. But this is, you know, it's not the miracle drug everyone thinks it is. Like if you have great genetics, you know, it could be, you know, a miracle for you. It could be great. But for other individuals and a lot of people, you know, how much are you willing to sacrifice to really, you know, push an extra, you know, 10, 20 pounds of muscle? It's individual preference at the end of the day. And like, how well are you going to respond relative to what kind of side effect profile are you going to get? You know, some people, they take this shit and they get like more sides than actual progress. Like it's, you know, ultimately a individual specific response. And there are definitely individuals who get the short end of the stick. Tren doesn't just turn you into a superhuman. Unlike what many people think, in general, you'll actually see more individuals end up like in this situation, or, you know, slightly better than that, than you will see guys who are like bodybuilders who look like Sergi Constants, or, you know, fucking big actual open bodybuilders and shit, who actually like look like they're on gear. You know, you'll see this shit more often than that. So don't get your mind warped by social media. Don't feel like shit. I just spit all over my keyboard. Don't feel like shit if you don't respond like these guys. Like the chances are you will not. But you have to have realistic expectations with everything. And that is why, you know, I'm even making this post to begin with. One of the things is also to educate about estrogen levels. That was obviously the main overarching educational point here. above and beyond the genetic response thing is that this guy could have avoided all that if he just understood how SERMs work. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Hopefully you learned something. SERM thing, genetic response, whatever it is, hopefully there's some applicable information that you can take away from that. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates28.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates28. Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute. Not BitChute. Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic. It's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Get high quality oversight from doctors who actually know what they're doing, know how to interpret lab work, know what kind of diagnostics you should be getting above and beyond that, and can design an individually specific design protocol just for you based on your individual needs rather than a cookie cutter. Here's your test, HCG and a anastrozole, kick you out the door, make our markup on medications. We make our markup on the services and high quality oversight from the doctors, not just the medications. So we actually don't really give a fuck if you get the meds or not, and is why we will also work with natural athletes or individuals who are just natural and want to check their hormone levels, optimize their health, assess any kind of imbalances or deficiencies they may have, and figure out what kind of recommendations we might have from a dietary intake, a supplemental, whatever it is perspective, before you end up getting haphazardly thrown on fucking exogenous TRT. So again, if you want high quality service, high quality oversight, check it out. It is in the video description below, as well as anything else I'm associated with: Gorilla Mind, Nootropics, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas I designed myself from scratch. Clothing, for example, the shirt I'm wearing, linked in the description below, helps support the channel as well, and anything else I'm associated with. Recommended diet model for gaining muscle and strength and sports performance rather than just a cookie cutter influencer diet from the fucking idiots on Instagram who promote dumb ebooks that are they're not all dumb, by the way. I'm just saying, like, in general, you know what I mean, where they have, like, I don't know, they design like a plan with like an automated fucking system that's like not tailored to you whatsoever. It's just cut up and, spit out cookie cutter style, and they'll, have an ebook with like shitty fucking information about, hit your protein and your macros, and like nothing else, nothing to do with micros, nothing to do with gut health, nothing to do with anything other than just, just basic fucking shit. So the diet model I recommend is in the video description below, as well as anything else I'm associated with. And also, again, the diet model, maximizing your micronutrient intake before you decide if you're gonna jump on TRT. Another thing most people don't do. Sometimes it's basic. Sometimes it's just getting good sleep and getting enough nutrients in. And most people overlook it, just jump on TRT when they may not need it and may otherwise not want it. So definitely be cognizant of that. And anything else I'm associated with, it is all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.